Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Eden Road podcast, where on today's show, we're going to be doing something quite casual. We're going to be previewing the upcoming season. We're going to try and make it as chatty as possible, really. We did have a guest that was due to come on, but unfortunately they weren't able to make it last minute. So we are going to be recording with that guest, but that'll be in the first international break once the kind of craziness of the first 3 weeks of the season are out of the way and there's a bit of a clearer picture with what's going on in the Prem. So just me and Craig today. I should say Craig and I today. Craig, how you doing?
Yes, mate. I'm just glad football's back. Proper football's back. So all that
Exactly.
classic from sevens, wasn't it? Proper football's
Exactly
back.
that. Exactly that. It's a bit weird with the Euros and the Olympics. It's just all like this summer has just gone so quickly, and now that the Prem's back, it's just like it's just gone mad quick, really quickly.
But saying that, I watched like every game in the Euros, and then I watched one game in the Olympics. It was just the football in the Olympics. This is just different. It's never. I feel like it's never as good as like those competitions are. Yeah, we had that Morocco-Argentina game with a crazy incident where the players get attacked. In fact, they go in and VAR disallows a goal an hour later. Yeah, that's the way the world of football is now.
Yeah, I know. But I watched all of the Olympics really. Well, I worked on the Olympics, so I had to watch it. But like the Olympic football doesn't really do much for me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Maybe it's just because the caliber of players, but the way Spain's year in football this year is just crazy. So it's mental the amount of trophies that they've accrued this year. It's just absolutely nuts. But anyway, Premier League is back. We're going to try and make this kind of a half an hour chat. We're going to look at last season a little bit, talk about pre-season. And then we're going to get into Brentford season, the transfer business that we've done so far, who we're linked with. And we're also going to do some predictions as well for the wider Premier League. But the aim is to make this as kind of informal, chatty as possible, just to kind of get a feel for the new season now that football is back. I know it's crept up quite quickly, as we mentioned in the intro. But football's back, Craig. Football is back. I can't wait.
It's back.
G-Tech, followed up by Liverpool. It's going to be a good kind of. I always find sort of pre-season and the off-season just a little bit strange because as football fans, you kind of get your hopes up. And then they could all either be, the hopes could be justified throughout preseason, or they could come to an absolute fucking failure in the first couple of games. Really crash down. So it's all a bit weird. But just first thing that I want to talk about. What did you make of last season, Craig, in terms of standard of football in the Premier League, the enjoyment of it, any tactical changes that you might notice? What did you make of it in terms of Brentford season and then maybe wider Premier League?
I mean, if we start wider Premier League, actually, I would argue that we got very lucky. That the standard of football in the Premier League last year wasn't as good as the first two seasons that we had for sure, where we finished 13th, we finished 9th in an incredible season, and then last year we're fortunate with teams that have points deductions and the level of football is not fantastic. We was very, very lucky because if we had the injury problems that we had in the first season or the second season, I would say that we go down. Do you know what I mean? We were very fortunate last year, but there are always those standout games and things like that. You have them every season. Like the first season, you've got Arsenal, you've got Chelsea away, and then you've got like City in the second season, and then last year. We got Chelsea away again. We always have standout fixtures, and it's always really good. But
it's always Chelsea as well,
and it's always Chelsea. It's always Chelsea. I just think that we were lucky to have the injury problems that we had last season, and not the two previous. And fingers crossed, not this season as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think in terms of the standard, I 100% agree with you. I don't think it was in terms of like the pure enjoyment of it last year, because we had that kind of three-way title race right up until the kind of final 6 games. I think that's when Liverpool's kind of started to drop off a little bit.
Yeah.
In terms of the enjoyment of that title race, I can't remember the last time there was 3 teams going down to the wire for the title. So that was quite exciting. But I mean, the writing was kind of on the wall for Burnley, Sheffield United. Luton were the only one that were kind of looking like they could do something. But
could have done something, yeah.
I mean, the fact that Forest and Everton both had points deductions and the 3 promoted teams still never really got out of that scrap, it does kind of show that the 3 teams that came up probably weren't the best. Whether that will be replicated this season, I don't know. We're going to have a chat about that as well. Yeah. But are we fully? You mentioned the injuries there. Are we fully convinced? And like, it'll be different for different people. Like, if you go off Twitter and the tweets that I bookmark every week for tweet of the week, the reasons for our season going so wrong will be different with every person. But I think the majority of sensible Brentford fans will realise that the amount of injuries that we had last season was unprecedented. So are you thinking that the injuries last season, that was the sole reason that killed us? Or do you think there's something else?
I'd have to say yes, because you've got to look at the core of the squad that we had over the last 3 years as well. Not much really has changed since we've been promoted into the Premier League, bar one or two players stepping in. If we'd had a full fit squad, and the games at the start of the season when we did have a full fit squad, we was fantastic. You know, we looked really good. But as soon as those injuries start to hit, you know, we start with Rico in September at Newcastle, and then you go Aaron Hickey in October, and Brian Obama in December, and everything else just in between. If we hadn't had those injury problems, there is no way that we would be having conversations of relegation in the same way that we were last season. Not a chance. Not a chance.
Yeah,
I think that there are other little factors. Do you know what I mean? But it's obvious. Do you know what I mean? That was the biggest factor.
Yeah, and I think if it's weird because we haven't done that much transfer. I mean, we brought in Fabio Carvalho, which I think is a really shrewd signing, but we haven't done as much business as I hoped we would have. I think I tweeted out that the lack of transfer business is slightly concerning, but obviously we have to, caveat that with the amount of injuries was just crazy. Yeah. And there's no way, I'm hoping to God that there's no way that can happen again. But you would like to think that the club are too smart and have been too smart in previous years to kind of take those injuries for granted and be like, well, that was out of the ordinary, but we're not going to risk it again. So that's where I'm thinking a lot of frustration in terms of our recruitment is coming from, because, we still don't have a left back for Rico Henry, and it looks like we're still going to be with the same fullbacks come Sunday. So we definitely need to do something about that, I would say, in terms of the players that we need to bring in before the window shuts. 4 years in the Prem, Craig, we're going to talk about sort of the challenges that are posed to clubs outside the sort of top 6, top 7 now, whether it's every season is just a case of survival. But in terms of, I think that is the case in terms of survival. There's teams outside the other 14, there's a chance that all of them could go down. But I think the job that Brentford have done kind of goes under the radar a little bit. The job that Thomas Frank has done in terms of keeping Brentford in the Prem for 4 years on the trot, with one of the lowest budgets, and in breaking that mold. I just can't remember, like, when we got promoted, I don't remember thinking to myself, I remember thinking we'd stay up, but I didn't think we'd be going into our fourth in the Prem, like, comfortably as well. I mean, last season wasn't comfortable per se, but we were never in the relegation zone ever throughout the whole season.
We've still never been, touch word, like, I mean, like, we've still never been in the relegation zone in the Premier League. 4 years, for 3 completed seasons, going into the 4th, still never being in the relegation zone in the Premier League. Like, that's obvious. It's testament to the work that Thomas Frank and the backroom staff do, even though they tried to kill half of our team last year. But we still managed to do it. I remember when we got promoted, thinking how glad I am we didn't get promoted the year before. How happy I was that we lost to Fulham, because if we'd have had a COVID season, I'm adamant that we'd have got relegated and never gone back up, and I would have still never seen Brentford live in the Premier League. So I'm so glad that didn't happen. But I think it worked out for the best, like massively for the best, because, I mean, mate, these last 3 years have just been brilliant, haven't they? It started to, I do feel that it's starting to change. There is a sense of change and things like that happening. I just think there's an element of change, but this season will tell as to whether or not we can turn the ship from the back end of last season.
100%. I think in terms of the pre-season, what can you take from it? Can you take anything from it? Because I don't go to any pre-season games. Obviously, you went to the one in Benfica, so you can tell me about that. But I just kind of steer clear, because I know that I'm not going to see the most likely starting 11 for the game against Palace on Sunday, although it will probably be something close to what we saw in the game against Wolfsburg. So what can you take from pre-season? I've just always steered clear of the games because I just think there's nothing riding on it. There's going to be loads of subs. and it's a kind of chance for managers to experiment. But what do you think of pre-season?
Lisbon is an incredible city. That's what we'll start with. And a pre-season out in Portugal was a fantastic idea. So whoever suggested that at Brentford, kudos. And whoever got a game with Benfica, fantastic. It was really good. I did the Benfica game and I did the Wolfsburg game. I just wasn't able to get myself to any of the other ones. But yeah, I mean, looking at Aston Villa, they've conceded like 11 goals and scored 3 in pre-season. But that tells nothing of the story that they had last season, you know. So you can't really judge these things. Man City and Chelsea both lost to Celtic out in the States in pre-season as well, and then City go and I'm sure City beat someone the other day like 4-5-0 as well in pre-season. So you can't really judge them. It's far too unpredictable pre-season, but sometimes it's just about enjoying it, going to see new places. I mean, I've done Germany, done Portugal now, going to watch Brentford play. So it's just about enjoying it, I suppose. It's a bit of football with no pressure, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Now I've tuned in and watched the games. I mean, the one against Watford I thought was good. We played well. The one against Benfica I thought was really good, especially when all the young B team players came on. I thought they really held their own against Champions League side, which was decent. But I say Champions League side, but I know pre-season is different. It's very different. But I think, and it leads nicely onto my next question. We're going to be talking about the season coming up. What are we expecting, Craig? Are we a fully fit? And I say this, a fully fit Brentford side, the one that we had when we almost got Europe, is looking close to what we'll have once we get Aaron Hickey and Rico Henry back. In terms of the players that we've got, and we brought in Fabio Carvalho, it looks like that is going to be a very similar squad to the one that we had when we almost got Europe. So part of me thinks, yes, I do want new signings. I want some cover. I want the recruitment department to learn that anything can happen, and the injuries, you know, whilst it was unprecedented, it definitely could happen again. Oh, but absolutely. I'm also thinking, you know, fucking hell, boys, Europe could be on again.
it could be on. We live in this utopia as Brentford fans, don't we? Where anything could happen, because I'm absolutely preparing myself for the possibility of us finishing 7th or 8th, depending on how the cup games go, and finishing 18th. So yeah. there is such a huge spectrum when it comes to watching Brentford that I expect to happen. I just, you know what, I would take 17th in a good cup run. I would take getting knocked out of the cups in the first and second round, third round of the FA Cup, second round of the League Cup, and finishing. I'd take finishing 9th again. Do you know what I mean? Just to have an enjoyable season. So you can't call it. Absolutely, you cannot call it with this team. What do you think? What are you hoping for?
The thing is, especially with like the Ivan Toney thing, you look at our front, you look at our attacking options, and we're going to talk about Wissa as well, because there's some links with Wissa to Wolves after Pedro Neto's gone to Chelsea. But our attacking options, provided everyone stays fit, they're really good. They're really good. We've got Thiago coming back in December, and I know we should probably touch on that as well, just because that was the most Brentford thing ever. It's the most Brentford thing ever. Our record signing, new striker to replace Ivan Toney, gets injured and he's out until the end of 2024, which is absolutely fantastic. But I'm looking at our attacking options, and I'm thinking Wissa and Bumo, KLP, Sharda, Toney, Thiago when he comes back. There is real strength and depth there. And whilst we're on it, and I was going to touch on actually no, screw that. We're going to I was going to talk about Toney, but Toney's coming a bit later. But just in terms of the signings that we've made signing Fabio Carvalho. He's going to bolster those attacking options in midfield, and he can kind of play anywhere across the front line. I think for Hull, he did his best. He played his best football when he was playing as a number 10 or as a centre forward. I'm not sure where he's going to jet into the Brentford side that Thomas Frank likes to set up, because as we've spoken about, he kind of goes with a double pivot and not really an out-and-out number 10. Yeah. And Mikhail Damsgaard has kind of been taking up those positions in pre-season, but again, he's not been out-and-out 10. He's been more of an 8. So I think the problem for me isn't in the front line. I think the front line were absolutely sorted, and that is if the front line kind of replicated its level of quality across the squad, then I think Europe would actually be a genuine possibility.
Oh yeah.
But where I'm looking at the kind of, I wanted some fresh legs in midfield, and I want to see whether the likes of Pert Harris can maybe get some game time this year. The likes of Cognac, who I think's looked really good in pre-season. I really like him, and I think he's going to be really, really good. And I hope he gets minutes this season. But we won't know until the first few weeks of the season. The thing is, the ceiling with this team.
Yeah.
The thing that worries me for the first week or the first kind of month or so is of the fullback positions. Quite naturally, we're going to probably most likely see Mads Roerslev on the right again, or Chris Ayer and Mads Roerslev forced over to the left. That's where it worries me in terms of the way Thomas Frank likes to play, whether that be in a 4-3-3 or a 3-5-2, having those options down the flanks to support whoever's there.
Yeah.
Whether that be Whistle or Mbumo or Sharda. That's where it worries me. But once those signings come back, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at the squad. I think we've got enough quality to really push up the league. I really do. Once we get some fit players and we bring in some cover for the likes of Aaron Hickey and Rico Henry. What do you think? What are you expecting?
Well, going forward, I don't think we have a problem at all. You know, you list those 6 players, and we've got 2 players for each position, and that's exactly what we want, exactly what we need. And the Wolfsburg game is kind of the epitome of Brentford, because we looked like scoring every time we went forwards. The problem was we looked like conceding every time they attacked. So putting the ball in their net, I don't see that being a problem. The problem is keeping the bugger out of ours. You know what I mean? So I think that even these preseason games have very clearly highlighted to us as fans that we need that defensive cover, because I based on what I've seen in preseason and the last few games of preseason, I expect our back 4 to be Roerslev on the right, Nathan Collins, Ethan Pinnock, and Ayer on the left, based on what we've seen in all of these preseason games. Now, if we had been smart, I'm not saying we haven't been smart. Well, technically we haven't, because we haven't really recruited at all this window. If we had been smart, we would have got left back cover in pretty early. Now, whether that's just based on the fact that Rico is coming back within the first few weeks of the season, or they just trust Chris Ayer to do that job well, and he has done it to a point. Obviously, he's a venturing fullback, but Mads Roerslev is also kind of a venturing fullback, which means eventually we're just left with Nathan Collins and Ethan Pinnock as the 2 defenders. So, you know, if we had, there's still 2 weeks of the window, we still could do it. You know, we still could invest in a left back and a right back and a fullback cover. If we had done that, I would be a bit more comfortable going into the start of the season, knowing that we've got players playing in natural positions. But once we're back to a full fit squad, I don't think we should be finishing below 11th.
I think let's go on to Ivan Toney and talk about it in the light that we've now probably got him until at least January. I don't think he's going to go now. There was some rumours that there was a £40 million bid from Al Ali in Saudi Arabia, and that would have done Callum's prediction a lot of good, because I'm pretty sure Callum said you can't see him going anywhere apart from Saudi. I don't think he would have. I'd like to think that he wouldn't go to Saudi, just because purely like ambition-wise, at the peak of his powers, it's probably a few years too early.
Yeah.
But the prospect of having Ivan Toney for a full season, considering, or for at least half a season, considering what happened last year and the interviews and the way it kind of turned a bit toxic towards the end. I mean, it was toxic from when he gave the interviews, but certainly towards the end, when the performances started to really worsen, the mood around Ivan Toney definitely switched for a large proportion of the fan base, I would say. But we've got him back. He's training. He's had a good Euros. He's made an impression. He's played well in the preseason games as well that he's played in too. So where are you with it, Craig? Toney is probably going to be our starting striker until December.
Yeah. I kind of see him seeing out his contract, which is what was being talked about as well, wasn't it, before the stuff with the Saudi move come about. But let's just talk about how much money they're talking about offering him as well. £18 million a year salary. That's crazy. That is crazy money. It's like £750,000 a week. It's just bonkers. Like, it's mental. we know he's a good player. We know he's arguably the best striker we've ever had thus far. He's arguably the best striker we've ever had thus far. If if he can play and stay out of that media, I don't know, the media limelight of not necessarily playing because we need him to succeed, we need him to do well, we need him to score goals, so we need him to show himself off on that in that aspect. But if he can stay out of the media limelight off the pitch for at least half a season, then I'd be very happy with him being our striker. It's just I sense him in September 1st saying I'm a Brentford player until something happens, and then
until he starts to play well,
and then so in August, in September it'll be I'm a Brentford player, and then in October it'll be I'm a Brentford player till something happens, and then November it'll be we're looking forward to the transfer window, and December I imagine it'll be Brentford again, get him gone. We'll be working towards him being out of the club.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think if we can get even kind of 75% of the player that we got when he scored 20 goals, I think we're really cooking with him up top. But I think as soon as it starts to go well for him, the first international break, the Sky cameras will be out. Why didn't the move happen to Ivan? He was like, I don't know. He'll be in there.
I wanted it
to. I wanted it to. Yeah,
I was there. I wanted it to.
Genuinely, that will definitely happen. But and we should say as well that it's not nailed on that he's going to stay. I think he's going to stay personally, but I think I read somewhere else that Man United was planning to do like a last minute kind of loan with an obligation to buy, but with the amount of money they've spent, I mean, the loan with obligation to buy would make the most sense, but I can't see them sort of signing him on a permanent now because they've already spent quite a bit of money this window already. Tottenham have already signed Solanke, so that was kind of the only other club that was sniffing around, and I think
Thomas Frank did come out and say, didn't he, in an interview recently as well, that he expects Ivan Toney to be a Brentford player on September 1st. So there is that as well.
It is annoying in retrospect. It is so annoying, the ban, because when you look back on it, if we could have sold him after that season, we could have got £100 million for a player that we spent 10 million on. But I mean, if you put it into bigger context, I guess like if you're going to lose a bit of money, you'd rather it was on a player that you've not spent a lot on. And the fact that we've signed the likes of KLP, Chris Ayer, Kevin Schade for almost double the amount of what we paid for Ivan Toney. Yeah, it's looking like we've got him on the cheap.
It's also what we consider worth as well. Do you know what I mean? What is more worthy to us, making 60 to 80 million profit on Ivan Toney, or being in the Premier League? Because if we can be in the Premier League and make £100 million on TV rights every season, plus then everything else that we're going to get alongside it, that has to be more worthy than making a buck on Ivan as well.
Let's talk about some other transfer business or other transfer rumours. Dara O'Shea from Burnley is one that's been lingering. I like this signing. I think he was one of Burnley's better players last year, but I feel like there's been some disagreements over the price. Yeah. In terms of the centre-back positions, I like the signing. I really do like the signing, but I feel like for some reason or another, I don't know why we're not kind of focusing our attention on those fullback positions. Whether Dara O'Shea can play at fullback, I don't know, but I do like the signing of Dara O'Shea if it goes through. Add to the Irish contingent as well. What do you reckon?
That was kind of the thing, wasn't it, with Zanka as well? The thought of it was we don't let Zanka go until we've got another player in, because he was that cover player. So we've let him go, which kind of leads me to believe that we do have something lined up.
Yeah.
But then again, knowing the way things are going at the moment, it's a very real possibility that we don't, or we're not meeting the valuations, or they're kind of moving the goalposts in the same way that the rumours of Napoli doing with Cajuste moving the goalposts and things like that.
I think when we go on.
I was just going to say I agree that our priority should have been fullback cover rather than down the middle.
I think with the centre-back position as well, like we've got Pinnock, Ben Mee, Nathan Collins. We've got Kim that can play there as well, who I think looks good in pre-season. So I think now that Zanka's gone, they probably want one more in there in terms of the cover that we need.
Yeah.
But I think 100% the fullback positions are the priority, and we really need to get one of those over the line. Whether one of those centre halves, whether they can play centre half, play fullback, I don't know, but that's definitely a priority for me. Let's talk about Jens Kajust. It looked like that transfer is wrapped up. He had the medical done, and then in Brentford fashion, it's the one that got away. But I feel like in terms of this one, and I don't think you can really level any stick at the kind of recruitment department.
No.
And people are really quick to jump on the bandwagon of Giles out and what are we doing? And, you know, I put it in a tweet, like, this is the same recruitment department that have recruited some of the best players in our history. So for people to be kind of jumping on people's backs, for whatever reason, you just have to trust that the people do this job because they know more about recruitment than the layperson, than me and you, than every Brentford fan. They do this job because they're qualified to do the fucking job. So if they pull out of the deal, it's probably for a good reason. And I think whether we know the details of that reason, whether they come out or not, it sounds like from what people have told me, it sounds like that there was someone trying to, you know, kind of pull the wool over another party's eyes in terms of that transfer. So I'm not too asked about it, especially go on.
I was going to say, the thing is, Napoli had another, I saw it on Twitter as well. I can't remember the geezer's name. It was an internal transfer from another Italian club into Napoli. And that club also pulled out on the transfer because a similar situation happened to them where the player had the medical. So Napoli had them in, they've been through the medical, and then they've kind of moved the goalposts again. And the other teams pulled out. So Napoli are clearly trying to do something which has kind of gone against them in the transfer of Kajust and this other player that they was trying to sign. So God knows what's happening.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think we just need to trust. I think definitely just trust the recruitment department in terms of the players that we're going to bring in. I don't think we're done yet. I feel like the rumors, there's still quite a few rumors kind of swirling around. So I definitely don't think we're done. But as we said, the incomings, it's got to be a fullback. I think the fullback position has to be covered in some way, shape, or form. Yeah. Let's talk about Wissa and then we'll talk about kind of the wider Premier League and getting some predictions as well. There was a rumor, I think it was yesterday or maybe the day before yesterday, that Wolves were looking to sign Wissa for around like 25 million. Obviously, Pedro Neto is now transferred to Chelsea for their like millionth signing of the window. I do want to talk about them a little bit because they're a fucking weird club at the moment. Really, really weird club at the moment. But when I was going to tweet about it, but then I thought, no, let's talk about it on the pod and have a slightly more considered conversation about Wissa potentially moving and us making a bit of profit on him. What do you think of Wissa to Wolves? Like, would you be asked, or would you be? Because the way I look at it, I think if they're going to offer a bit of money and they need a player like that, I wouldn't mind losing Wissa if we can make a bit of money and maybe reinvest next season. But you're shaking your head. Are you shaking your head?
No. I was kind of umming and ahhing, more of a shake. Kind of umming and ahhing. Wissa's one of those players that is reliable. I think he's always there. Other than when he obviously goes to AFCON and things like that, he's just there. I feel like he's one of those consistent players that we don't have an abundance of within the team. Now, with that being said, I also think that he doesn't necessarily have the impact on the team that we as fans want him to have, because we've kind of seen Ivan Toney for long enough now, and we see then Wissa having to step in through the middle, and they're completely different players. But that means that we have to play a completely different style of football, which I'm not opposed to, and we had plenty of conversations around the back end of last season about how we could change the way we play to suit a front three of Wissa and Buemo and Schade. And I didn't
because they can all kind of interchange as well. It's brilliant.
Exactly.
It was good, great to watch.
It was easy. It was easy on the eye. It was enjoyable and things like that as well. So I'm what I would say is I'm not opposed to him going if we can get the right price for it, but I also wouldn't mind him staying and being another option across that front three.
I think as well with Wissa, if we really want to break down his game, we've always said that he's much better as a number 9 than he is kind of coming in off the wing. if we want to break down his game and where he's going to fit into the team, with a fit Ivan Toney, Thomas Frank's not going to drop him. He's never, ever going to drop him. Does Wissa get in ahead of Schade at the moment? Probably not on the wing. Does he get in ahead of Mbeumo at the moment? Probably not on the wing. So I wouldn't be opposed to selling him. I wouldn't be opposed to keeping him because, as we've seen, he's tremendous coming off the bench. He's really good in terms of bringing a bit of fire into the performance, especially when the kind of front three weren't firing at points last season, points the season before. You bring on Wissa, he kind of changes the game, which is good. But he's not going to want to sit around and just be a super sub. Like no one wants to do that. So I think he's been a really good sign. If you look at the breakdown of his kind of stats and his goals per game and his chances created and stuff like that, he has been a very solid Premier League player. But if we can make a bit of profit on him, if we can double the amount that we paid for him in terms of his sale, I think it would be good business. I genuinely do think it'd be good business. But as I said, I'm kind of indifferent. If he stayed, he's a good squad player to have, especially if there's injuries across the front three. If he went, good business. I think that's like a kind of good way to sum it up.
I do think if we get him, if we get rid of him, then we do it sooner rather than later, just to give ourselves an opportunity to actually reinvest that money as well.
Yeah, for sure. Right, shall we talk about the wider Premier League? We're going to do some predictions to do top 6 or top 7, so who's going to get the European places. We'll have the conversation about who's going down, and we'll also do a little throw forward to Palace. Maybe we'll do a little lineup predictor there. But first of all, surprise package this season, Craig. What do you think? I think Bournemouth have been doing some very, very, very tidy business, and I don't think it's over the line yet. But did you see the news that they'd signed? Is it Evan Nilsson, the striker from Evan Nilsson from Porto? Looks like he's on his way to Bournemouth for like £40 million, which is just crazy to even say Bournemouth and £40 million in the same kind of breath. But they've been doing such good business. What do you think?
They had to replace Solanke, didn't they? And they got a really good price for Solanke. I think it was 65 million that they got for him. So they definitely had the chance to reinvest, and by the sounds of it, they've done a good deal with Porto. They've been really good. You know, I wouldn't say that. It pains me to say, but I think Fulham have had a good window. And I've seen a lot of predictions of them going down. I don't think it's going to happen, and it pains me to say that. By the way,
that's blasphemy. That is
blasphemy. My sister's best friend is a Fulham fan, and I can't believe that she allowed that to happen in her life. And she'll if she listens to this, she'll be laughing at me saying this. I think they've had a good window. They've made some good signings, and people are sort of poo-pooing it, but I think Smith Rowe's a really good deal.
Very nice signing. I'd loved if we got him.
And you know, if I'm not mistaken, we have made one more signing than Liverpool so far, and Liverpool are the only team to have not made a signing this window. So that does worry me for them as well, especially with Arne Slot. Does it work so well for them? I don't know. I also think that Wolves could be in a bit of trouble. They've lost Neto, and I don't see them having reinvested that so well as well. But yeah, Bournemouth have done a great bit of business so far this window, and they could definitely push themselves this season. It just depends on how well they gel. Yeah,
for sure. I think they had a slow start under Iraola last season, so it wouldn't surprise me if that happens again. But when they in terms of the form table, there was a point of the season where they were just on absolute fire.
Oh yeah,
they were winning most of their games. So who have you got going down?
So based on the fact that I think that they are still going to get a points deduction, I do have Leicester going down.
Mm-hmm.
There is all of that stuff around them and unsure as to what's happening. So I think if they get a points deduction, I think they go down. I do also have Southampton going down. I just think that, again, the strength of the Premier League that we've seen over the last few years has gotten stronger, and maybe they might not be able to survive as or do as well as they might hope. Because I don't like them, Forest are going down.
I've got the exact same, mate. I think it's Forest time. I really hope it's Forest time.
Yeah. I just
so the fans can shut up. Yeah. The Leicester one. It's Steve Cooper back in the Prem. He looks like he's got a facelift as well. He looks like a different man. God. He's definitely had some work done there. It doesn't look like he's had about 20 joints before the game.
That ugly fart. Just get him out of the Premier League, man. I dislike him. As
he's so annoying. I don't. Just purely because of those Swansea days. His fucking is moaning about the red card and in the playoffs and stuff. Go on.
Yeah, no, he's just a pain. He's just a pain. I was going to say, I think that this season we might have a tighter bottom half than we will top half. So I think we'll see more teams being sucked into a relegation battle than we will a title. But saying that, we've done this and we haven't addressed the fact that there's the rumours of Man City's hearing being pulled forward as well now, and the possibility of them getting, having the book thrown at them. So we don't know what's happening with them. So there might only be 2 places that are being fought for this season. So that's also something to keep an eye out on, isn't it? But I think that Wolves have lost a few players, so they need to be careful. We obviously haven't had the greatest of windows, and if we have the injury problems that we had last season, we will need to invest in January. Otherwise, we will get sucked into that again. But I think we're going to see maybe 6 or 7 teams towards the end of the season that are fighting to stay in the Premier League as well. I kind of hoping for a bit of excitement, you know what I mean? At both ends.
Yeah, I think because the relegation was kind of set so early last year.
Yeah.
We're hoping for a little bit more of a showdown. Top 7, I've gone City to win it. I don't think you can escape Pep this season. I know Arsenal ran him close last year, but sounds like it's going to be his last year in the Prem. I think he's going to bring it home again. I think Arsenal will be close second, but I don't think they'll get over the line. We've got Spurs in 3rd, United in 4th, Newcastle in 5th. Possibly maybe swap Newcastle and Man United around, just because I know Newcastle don't have. I know they both don't. Well, Newcastle don't have European football this year. The signings United have done, I do like the business they've done so far, but I'm still not entirely convinced about Erik ten Hag and the way they play. I know it was good towards the back end of last year, but whether they can get some of those signings firing from the off, it remains to be seen. And then I've got Liverpool in 6th. I think it will be a bit of a bedding in process. They've still not signed anyone, which I think is a little bit bizarre. Especially for a new manager, you'd like to think that he would want to get some of the players that he likes to play within. And then as a rogue one, just for a laugh, I've gone Bournemouth in 7th.
Fair enough. So but both of us have gone for basically the same top 4. But there is obviously the City stuff, which is looming around them. We don't know what's going to happen there. So I do have them winning the league, but there is also a possibility they get relegated. So that's one end to the other. But what I will say is I would rather we give City 100 points than take away 100 points if it means Arsenal don't win the league, because that would be the worst thing for the Premier League and for football if they win the league.
The worst thing for football.
If they win the league, it will be terrible. They're already insufferable.
It's true. It's true.
As a fan base, they're already, it's so entitled and so insufferable. But I've kind of gone a different way around. I've got United 3rd and Spurs 4th. I just think, like you said, they had a really good end to last season, and it looks like it's an opportunity for them to kick on. They was quite unfortunate not to win the Community Shield. They lost on penalties. Jadon Sancho again misses penalty at Wembley. So I just think that they've got the talent in the squad to be able to do it this year. Whether Ten Hag can get them rallied in the same way he did towards back end of last season is yet to be seen. But we'll know soon enough. And Spurs in 4th. I've done it again. Spurs in 4th.
Spurs in 4th.
I've got Newcastle 5th, Liverpool 6th, and I've got Villa 7th. I've gone Villa 7th because obviously they're finishing the Champions League last year, and I just think this year's going to be a bit tighter for them. So I've gone Villa in 7th.
Fair. No, that's very decent. I was going to do a quick Palace prediction, but I'm about to be kicked out of this room. So if you want to see the Palace preview, Craig is recording one tonight with the Crystal Palace podcast. That will be dropping. So keep your eyes peeled across the socials. In terms of the structure for the season, it's very, very much going to be similar to last year. It'll be 2 episodes a week. One of them previewing the upcoming game and one going back over the last game. So we're going to be talking to different podcasts, hopefully expanding our kind of network in terms of doing that. And yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We can't wait to do it. We'll be down at the G-Tech on Sunday. I think we're planning to do some flyering. So if you see us around the ground, do come and say hello. We'll be handing out some little posters with our socials and our links, because we really want to try and kick things off this year. Last year was good. We saw some growth, especially on the episodes with guests. More episodes with guests to come during the international break as well. The first one will be in 3 weeks' time, and we're going to have the guests that we were supposed to have on today. We're going to come in and do kind of, I don't know, early season predictions once the season has started. But yes, we're working on some more guests. That'll be good fun. And yeah, just can't wait for the season to start, to be honest. It always comes around so quickly, especially this year with the Euros and the Olympics, and we've chatted about it. But yeah, can't wait, Craig. I think it's going to be class. Remember to drop a comment down below with your thoughts ahead of the new season. How do we feel about Ivan Toney? What do we think Brentford can achieve this year with a fully fit squad? Are we going to sign some fucking fullbacks? Let's hope so. Remember to subscribe to the Spotify and the YouTube channels, and also give us a follow on our socials. That's at the Ealing Road on Twitter and at Ealing Road Pod on Instagram. Craig, it's been a pleasure, mate.
First one of the season. Up the bees.
Up the bees. There we go.